people were not getting really good treatments with their current drugs, and so they were kind of self-experimenting with cannabis, and they were perceiving benefit, but really there wasn't any biology behind that. So at the time we were asked to try and investigate that with some animal models that we had. And so what we did is, because we were doing long-term experiments, we saw animals with symptoms that are kind of relevant for human multiple sclerosis, particularly spasticity. And so we could ask the question, does cannabis really have any effect in controlling the symptoms of multiple sclerosis? So what we did is we had animals. We got some cannabis-like drugs because at that time it was found that there was a receptor, so we knew that cannabis worked because it was binding to a receptor. And so we stimulated the receptor, and actually within a few minutes we saw the alleviation of the symptoms, which was like a relaxation of the limbs. So the next important thing that we did is we blocked the cannabis system, and really what happened then was actually everything got worse, which kind of told us that the cannabis system was controlling the symptoms, and therefore by giving cannabis, all we were doing was actually acting on a natural regulatory system. Now at the time we didn't really understand the biology, but it suggested to us that we knew that spasticity was a problem of too much excitation of the nerves. And actually within a few years what was found is that for a nerve impulse to obviously cross a synapse, it has to have signals, and the signal is propagated. And as a consequence of that propagation, the natural cannabis molecule is released, called anandamide or 2-arachidonyl glycerol, which acts as a retrograde signal to go back to the presynaptic cannabinoid receptor and actually shut down excessive excitation. So once you start to think that the cannabis system really controls excessive neuro signaling, then it kind of makes sense that cannabis could have an effect in controlling symptoms. So indeed, that's kind of what we showed in the animals, and at the time the government had given a license to a company to actually start producing medical grade cannabis, and they initiated trials, and initially they failed because the trial design kind of wasn't the most appropriate, and in fact it took them 10 years to actually show that cannabis actually worked. Now the problem, of course, is what we realize from the biology is that the molecule within cannabis, tetrahydrocannabinol, and the CB1 receptor are the things that actually cause the therapeutic effect and also the side effect. And it's just because, say, the motor control is controlled in, say, the cerebellum, and the psychoactivity may be controlled in the cortex. And so cannabis has no mechanism to go to one area or the other, so you've got quite a narrow therapeutic window. So what we found is that indeed cannabis does control symptoms, and it's actually become a therapeutic drug. I think this work tells us that we can control symptoms, but it also tells us that we need to learn and learn from the biology, because actually we can get the therapy without the high, and we're kind of doing that now. So this is sort of a drug for tomorrow.